Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topics Gamer, here to share with you another one of my awesome worst to best tier list ranking videos. This time I'll be doing a tier list style worst to best ranking of my all-time favorite video game franchise of all time, Metal Gear Solid, or technically just Metal Gear. Now, since there's been a lot of rumors going around that a possible Metal Gear Solid remake may be coming or might be in the works, I figured that this would be a great time to just go through the franchise one more and do my ranking of which games I prefer in what order. Now, I've actually done a worst to best ranking of the Metal Gear Solid franchise before that I did about 6 years ago. But since a lot of you guys seem to prefer the more tier list style ranking, I just figured why not just go back and just redo that list again in this new style. And since I haven't seen that video in a while, I will figure that this will be a way for me to see if my opinion on some games has changed since 6 years ago. But I will be sure to leave a link to that video in the description down below if you are curious. And before I get into my personal ranking, if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe and to keep track of me and all my future videos moving forward. So, as we go into the personal tier list ranking style for this video, I have it organized into 6 different categories, going from I love it, I like it, it was okay, nothing special, or I didn't like it, or I simply didn't play it. There weren't too many, and there were like a couple of little like side expansions that I don't really think they count as game switch. So if there's something that you think is a game that you think should be on the list or isn't on the list, and you'd like to know where I would place, just let me know in the comments down below. But let's just start off with the games that in the franchise that I sadly did not play, or maybe fortunately I did not play. I did not play, let's see, I did not play Metal Gear Survive because I knew it was going to be garbage. This is a clear example of why the franchise is almost dead without Kojima at the helm. I mean, Konami just does not know what to do with this franchise at all, and it's just sad to see what it's become. I also did not play Metal Gear Gable, which was a Game Boy game that I didn't even know existed. Now, I've actually seen some footage of it, and I don't think it's a game I would have particularly liked, so I think I might have dodged a bullet from avoiding that game. Let's see, what else didn't I play? I also did not have a way to play Snake's Revenge. Now, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say controversy, but it's a little bit strange how there were 2 sequels to the first Metal Gear game. You had Metal Gear Snake's Revenge, or technically it was just called Snake's Revenge, or the true sequel, which is called Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. I've seen footage of Snake's Revenge. I'm not really sure where I would have put that one, but yeah, I definitely would have preferred the official Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake game to what Snake's Revenge ended up being. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, I'm also going to get the negative ones out of the way first. Now, the one definitive game I absolutely despise with a passion is I did not like Phantom Pain. Oh my lord, did Konami butcher the hell out of that game, and I didn't like the story at all. I mean, its twist ending pretty much ruined the whole game for me. And the fact that even though it tried, it does the mistake of what happens when you try to tell a story in the middle of a story that's already finished. I mean, at this point, Metal Gear Solid 4 had already been out for several years and had concluded the story. And the reason why Metal Gear Solid 4 for me is so damn good is it actually explained the entire plot of the franchise and it answered all of the questions that had been asked over the series. So to introduce a new game and add more questions, and on top of it, it even contradicts some of the things that were said in 4. So that's why I refuse to acknowledge it. I didn't like it. I've only played it once, and I never want to play it again. So that's why it is probably the only game on here that I definitively do not like. It is without question the worst project in Metal Gear history, in my opinion. So let's start off going with I don't think it was nothing special. Sadly, something I didn't think was all that special was Metal Gear Online. This is a game that came out around the time of Metal Gear Solid 4, and it pretty much was like a strange little multiplayer game. It was kind of in the sort of realm of what they did with the Metal Gear Solid Online game that they did with Metal Gear Solid 3, but it was a little bit better. But this wasn't a game that I found myself playing too often. It wasn't bad, I just, wasn't anything special. Another game that I don't think was very all that special, I'm just going to pair them just to save time, and that is the Metal Gear acid games. I don't think these are bad. I think it was an interesting direction in terms of this, not only the story, which took place in an alternate timeline. So they were testing it with alternate timelines even before it became a thing in the franchise. But I think that the gameplay style makes it stand out. I mean, I would certainly, I would pick the two acid games over online any day. But it's not something that I would say you should go out of your way to play. I just happen to have them because they're I just want to add them to my collection. But overall, they're not bad. Just I personally wouldn't recommend them. And I think the last game that I don't think was really all that special was Metal Gear Arcade. I only got a chance to play this once at a local arcade here in town, and pretty much it's kind of like a multiplayer shooter, but it kind of takes place during the first chapter of Metal Gear Solid 4, at least that's the primary setting I was playing on. And while the concept just isn't all that bad, I thought the controls were a little bit off, at least for me, because you had to, you would sit down, you would have your gun, and you had to kind of like move it as you were playing it. And so in practice, it was an interesting concept. I just don't think the execution was all that great, but I didn't think it was bad. I tested it out once, and it just wasn't something I thought I wanted to go back and play it again. Okay, now let's go into the okay tier. Not many games I would put in okay either, but I will say this. I'm gonna put Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zero. This to me was more of a demo. It was a demo. I mean, it was short, it was simple, it was a setup into Phantom Pain, but I would definitely pick that because at least you are actually playing as the character of Big Boss. That was the one thing that really upset me about the Phantom Pain, was that, I'm sure some of you guys know the spoiler, but I just, that was a big no-no, at least for me. At least Ground Zero was a little bit more focused, and it felt like it was a direct follow-up to Peace Walker, which I'll talk about that later on, which, it had some elements I thought were pretty cool. It was visually beautiful. I love the setting, and I love the ending that led up into the next game, but it was just, overall, it was just a glorified demo to be sure. Another game I also liked, I did like the first Metal Gear. I have had a chance to go back and play that. I was only able to play that because I had Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, and if you actually had Subsistence on the second disc, it actually came with copies of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake that you could actually play. So I did get a chance to play it that way. And I could see why that game was very innovative for its time, because, at the time, most games would be focused on just going around and killing everything in sight. But the fact that this was focused on stealth and not doing so much killing, I thought was a revolutionary idea. I can respect it at the time, meaning that's nothing new now. But for its time, I think that is a very good start to the franchise. So I'm happy that that game exists, and why, I did actually end up really liking it, and I thought it was okay. I think out of all that's left, those are the ones that are in the okay tier. So let's go into the liked tier. I liked Peace Walker. I think the gameplay mechanics were very good in Peace Walker. The story was okay, but let's just say it didn't... Put it this way. I think Peace Walker did a great job of introducing other characters that would be important to the franchise moving forward, and I think it acts as a good game to lead into the events of what, Ground Zero and what Phantom Pain should have been. I just think that what the game, for me, didn't do too well was the progression of the character of Big Boss himself. It seemed like everyone around him was handled better. And while I don't think it's bad, it just kind of focuses on Big Boss trying to get over the death of the boss, which at that point I thought he had kind of already done that, but this kind of expanded. So I think that the story itself focused on the wrong things in terms of the Big Boss character. But again, mechanic-wise, music, boss fights, I thought were pretty cool. However, the Peace Walkers really aren't important. That's the weird thing, and it's kind of crazy to believe that I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, there's a lot of far-fetched things about Metal Gear, but the fact that the Peace Walkers never get mentioned after this game in any way, and some of the Peace Walker machines are, like, way more powerful than Metal Gear weapons, so I thought that aspect was a little bit weird. But overall, I think that this game had a solid story. It had a great cast of characters. The game mechanics were definitely a major improvement over the last Portal game, which I'm going to talk about later. But I just think that the character of Big Boss just wasn't as well handled. It wasn't handled bad, but just not as well as I've seen in other games. Now, the game that I absolutely would put over Peace Walker is... Now some people don't do this, but is Portable Ops. I might even move this later on in the video, but Portable Ops gets such a bad rap for me. Not from me, from other people. And it pisses me off that more people don't acknowledge it. This is without question the most underrated and underappreciated games I've ever played. And the reason I love it so much is because, though I'll admit the gameplay mechanics for Peace Walker were better, they were definitely an improvement over it. It definitely took the gameplay mechanics from Portable Ops and improved it. The story for Portable Ops is absolutely amazing. It is without question my second favorite story involving Big Boss in the entire franchise. Because this is the game where he makes a massive transition of a character going from a solo operative to a leader of men. And I don't think any other interpretation of Big Boss is handled as well in terms of making that transition than in this game. Don't get me wrong, Metal Gear Solid 3 has the best representation of the character himself, but making that transition, which is something that even Solid Snake did not do as a character, would not have happened if it wasn't for this game. I think the only reason people don't like to acknowledge it is because of the name. And I actually experimented on what you could have called this game. And I think if the name had been changed, I think more people probably would have appreciated it more. And there's actually another YouTuber I actually want to do a discussion video talking about Portable Ops. But I absolutely adore Portable Ops. In fact, I would even say that the primary song itself, which is called Calling Tonight, is without question my favorite song in Metal Gear Solid history. Without question. It's a beautiful song if you haven't heard it. So please look it up if you haven't heard it. It's a beautiful song. But I think the story is absolutely amazing. I mean, it even sets up things that were going to happen in Metal Gear, including the introduction of Gray Fox. You get to find out how Big Boss knew that Solid Snake and Liquid Snake were going to be born. Just a lot of major setup for a lot of key events that are going to play a big role in the future of Metal Gear. And that's something that I don't think that Peace Walker did very well. But I think that while the gameplay mechanics in Peace Walker were better, the story was definitely a major step up over that game, which is why I would pick Portable Ops over Peace Walker, even though they kind of balance out, but just I'm more of a story person, so that's why, to me, Portable Ops kind of edges out Peace Walker only slightly. But heck, that's just my opinion. I see what's in the game I like. Another game I also like that a lot of people just choose to crap all over is Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Now this is the first remake of Metal Gear Solid 1, which apparently this is another, obviously they want to do another remake. I think a lot of people, I really don't know why people don't like this game more. Because I think that the visuals are a major improvement. They simply took a lot of mechanics from Metal Gear Solid 2 and added them. But I think one thing that kind of bothered a lot of people is the presentation of the story itself. They changed some. I think they changed some of the performances, which I didn't mind. And I think that some of the acts, some of the cutscenes, they made them a little bit more over the top. Which didn't bother me because a lot of over-the-top things happened throughout the franchise itself. So for that to be the reason that a lot of people don't like this game as much was something that I didn't understand. But while I do prefer the original version, I still would have loved to have played this game more often. But overall, I still really enjoy Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. And in terms of story presentation, I would certainly put it on par with the very first game, which is why I really ended up liking it. Let's see, what's another game I liked? I also liked Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. It was a solid game. It was definitely an improvement over the first Metal Gear game, and I think that the story was a little bit more personal in that game than in the first game. So that's why I really did like that. And I think the last game in my liked tier, I'm going to put Metal Gear Solid 2. I originally probably had this lower on my last list. Let's see. Let me move this. Let me move that over a little bit. So maybe put that behind. I'm not sure where. I don't know. I'll put that there. But Metal Gear Solid 2. Very interesting lead up to that game. I think the story was surprised a number of people how we thought we would be focusing on Solid Snake, but it ended up focusing on Raiden. Raiden himself was not a very great character, but they definitely redeemed him in the following games. But I think that the story... You know what? You know what? No, I'm going to switch that right back. No, I'm going to put that over that. Okay. Metal Gear Solid 2. Great game. Great entry. Great lead up into Metal Gear Solid 4. Solid cast. I don't think Solid Snake was used as well as he could have been, which was a surprise to a lot of people because, you know, up until the release of this game, no one even knew that Raiden was a character, so that came as a major surprise. That's something I don't even think you can get away now. But overall, Metal Gear Solid 2 was kind of a rehash of the first game, and even the game itself acknowledged that. So I think just the only thing that just kind of puts it like slightly negative for me is that it has not much originality to it. I mean, the inclusion of the Metal Gear Ray was a great addition. Some of the more far-fetched story ideas were implanted here, but I just think the fact that so much of it is a repeat of the first Metal Gear Solid game is the only thing that, in my opinion, slightly hurts it. But overall, it's a solid story. It works, and I think that it is a great game that kind of leads into the events of Metal Gear Solid 4, which is why I like Metal Gear Solid 2. I just don't like it perhaps as much as a lot of people do. But I know a lot of people really do enjoy Sons of Liberty, which is why I put it in like. All four of these games are loved games, so I'm just going to go through them real quick. Metal Gear Solid 1. First Metal Gear Solid game I ever played. It pretty much get it. Metal Gear Solid did for Metal Gear what Final Fantasy VII did for Final Fantasy. Up until this game, it had been a franchise that had been kind of underneath the radar, but this kind of elevated it to AAA status. It is a legendary game. A lot of people consider this to be their favorite entry in the franchise. I perfectly understand why. Solid Snake is really at his I would say he's almost at his best. I think this game has probably my second best favorite story involving Solid Snake himself. It has a lot of great iconic characters, a lot of great setup, a lot of great music, a lot of great action set pieces. This game is just an absolute gem of the PlayStation 1 era and of the franchise itself. I mean, if you want to find a definitive game to introduce anyone who is new to the franchise, I think this would be the game to do it for. So that's why they want to remake this game more than any other. And that is going to be followed up by Metal Gear Rising. Love Metal Gear Rising. Now, this is probably the biggest surprise because this was not a game I thought I would like as much as I thought I would. I thought I was going to hate this game because they were turning into a hack and slash. Not only was this game awesome, it probably has my second favorite soundtrack in the entire franchise. This is the game that definitively made Raiden an absolute badass. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was already a badass in Metal Gear Solid 4. And that was the game that kind of completely pulled a 180 in terms of my viewpoint on the Raiden character. But this just took it to a whole nother level. It's just sad that we probably won't get another follow-up game, but if we ever did get a Metal Gear Rising like 2 game, I would be totally open for it. But this is the game that surprised me most because I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, which is why I absolutely love this game. And that is followed up by Metal Gear Solid 4, which is remember, hang on, let me put that, go right there. So, Metal Gear Solid 4. Favorite conclusion to any video game franchise ever. This game did everything it needed to do to conclude Metal Gear Solid franchise, or the primary story itself. I think that this is, without question, my favorite story involving Solid Snake. I think visually this game still holds up, the gameplay still holds up, the boss fight still holds up, a lot of emotional key members. This game, without question, has my favorite cutscene, probably the single most important cutscene in the entire franchise, even though it has, like, you know, some people complain that the last, you know, hour and a half some people complain that the last hour and a half long cutscene is too long, but heck, I've never actually skipped it myself. This is, without question, this was the first PlayStation 3 game I ever bought, and it has remained my favorite PlayStation 3 game of all time. And the fact that the PlayStation 3 is my favorite PlayStation of all time gives it some extra points for me. So that's why I definitively loved Metal Gear Solid 4. I think it was the perfect ending to my all-time favorite franchise. I wouldn't change anything about it, and which is why I'm happy to have, you know, a scroll of it right above my bed when I go to sleep. And that leads to the last game of the list, and that is Metal Gear Solid 3. Hang on. Metal Gear Solid 3, keep it simple, is my favorite video game of all time. It is a 10 out of 10. It is another member, like both Metal Gear Solid 4 and Metal Gear Solid 3 are my legendary 10 out of 10 club, but Metal Gear Solid 3 is my favorite video game of all time. It has probably one of my favorite stories in like history. This was the game that like elevated Metal Gear over Final Fantasy for me, because for the longest time Final Fantasy was like my favorite franchise, but this elevated it. I think the story of Naked Snake's development into becoming Big Boss is absolutely phenomenal. This is one of the few games that actually had an ending that did get me emotional and shed a few tears, which is very, very difficult to do. There's so many themes and so much setup, and there's just so many iconic characters and so many moments that just make this just a legendary title, at least for me personally. And the fact that it has been able to hold up after all these years really shows that Kojima, I believe, was at his absolute best when he was making this game. And this is the game that for me kind of solidified that I think I like Big Boss as a character over Solid Snake slightly, even though technically I think Solid Snake has had more games. But I think that Big Boss's story is a much stronger story. It's kind of similar to Star Wars. It's kind of the story between Darth Vader and Luke, but this story is like much more about Vader, and even when he isn't there, or at least in Big Boss, even when he's not in the game, his presence still echoes throughout the entire franchise. And so for him to share a moment with Solid Snake at the end of the franchise, I thought was just an absolutely beautiful moment. And it all started with Metal Gear Solid 3, which is why it is always going to remain my favorite Metal Gear Solid game of all time, and it will probably remain my favorite video game of all time till the day I die. And that about does it for my list. So now that you guys have seen my tier list ranking of the Metal Gear Solid series, how would you guys rank these games? Share your ranking with me and everyone else in the comments down below. If you do happen to, again, like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep track of me on my future videos. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.